Today, I want to talk about how many people believe communism in China. You know, how many people they believe communism in China. You know, 2 or 3 weeks before, some people raised the question: how many people is all the Chinese people believe communism? So today, my title is how many people believe communism in China? I already talked about that. 1.4 billion people live in China, but only 100 million people is a member of communist parties. This 100 million people is a big quantity, right? It's more than the whole population in the UK. UK was 17 million people living in the UK, right? There is 100 million people is the membership of the Communist Party. But this 10%, this almost 10% of the whole China population. Those 10% people is firmly believe communism, and they promise to follow the communism whole life, and they have the odds when they join the party that they will make the communism come true. That's the 10%, and another over 19% of the peoples, they are not membership of the communist party. Now, how about those 90% of the peoples? They believe the communism or not? Okay, yeah. Some of the 10% of the membership of the communist parties, they are liars. You know, in China we have a little bit problem with corruptions. Those people steal the money. Those very high-ranked senior officers, they steal money and escaped to the United States, to the Europe. They have the very good luxury life in China. Yes, they break their oars. They break their oars. They don't believe the communists anymore. They take the money and go outside of China. So, and the 90% of the people, if they believe the communism is not. I must tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I must tell you the education system of China. China have the primary school the 6 years, middle school 3 years, high school 3 years, and university 4 years. And the first primary school and middle school 9 years is mandatory and free. All the people must go to school and get education like the 9 years mandatory education. What they teach the peoples? First one is politics. Second one is skill. Third one is discipline. 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 Yeah.
History.
Yes.
They teach that.
They teach the skill. That's the skill. You know. The politics, they teach about the communist, socialist, Marxism, and skill is about including the math, history, geography, like this, chemistry, physics, and the third one is discipline. That's all. Sorry, my pronunciation is a little bit problem. Discipline, yeah. And they train the people. Yeah, they train the people like soldiers. You know, you must obey cultures. China very focused on the collaborative work. They emphasize the people was the individual is a part of the groups. They do not emphasize the individual contribution. So they put the people like soldiers from the beginning, yes, from children. So those people, yeah, those people was trained like the soldiers from the kids. When they go to the 18 years, 20 years old, they like to train like soldiers. So the people, they have the very strong obey cultures. They follow the government's orders, instructions. So they have very strong control of the people's consciousness. So,
do you mind if I reply to what you said? I don't think you're right.
something. Then 90% of the people, all the people get 9 years mandatory and free educations.
What happens if you don't go to school?
You know, you cannot go. You cannot stay in the home. Yeah, the people will
drag you out.
Yeah, you will get troubles.
Home education, there's no home education.
They have that education.
But I mean, if parents
In Britain,
want to educate
there are some places where you can say, I will take my children out of school and teach them myself.
No, that's not allowed. That's not allowed.
No. The police will drag you kicking and
Yeah,
screaming.
you must go through the mandatory and free education. They teach you the politics, the ideology, the skill, and the discipline. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Brainwashing.
She's saying it's brainwashing. She's saying
Brainwashing. Yeah. From the beginning, you must accept the education from the socialism, from the Marxism, from the communism. Yeah, from the beginning. So,
just I want to challenge some of what you said. Firstly, although 10% of the population are members of the Communist Party, or thereabouts, 100 million, whatever, 90 million,
yeah, 100 million.
I would say, similar to what you implied, I would say the majority of Communist Party members do not really believe in communism. They don't really believe in Marxism. They swear allegiance, they declare that they're communists, but actually it's more of a networking and employment operation. So that they can advance their career by being a member of the Communist Party. I would say probably 20, maybe 20 to 30% are believers. On the other side, in contradiction to what you're saying, I would say amongst the wider population, I think a very large number of people believe in the ideals of socialism. I think probably a majority of the urban population believe in some kind of socialism.
Yeah, you know.
They may not believe every word the government says, but they believe in some kind of socialism.
So, like you said, 100 million people, they are membership of the Communist Party, but they are firm, I believe, most of them firmly believe the communism. But you know, I will talk about the collapse of the Soviet Union. In 1991, Soviet Union dissolution and this collapse, this have a huge impact on the confidence on the communism in China. You know, a lot of people lose the confidence on the socialism, on the communism. So they turn to the capitalism. They tend to open to the China and get the more United States culture, Japan culture, and UK's culture, and their investment, foreign investment come in. So I want to talk about over 19% of the people. They are not membership of the Communist Party. They are not. Yeah. Because of the dissolution and collapse of the Soviet Union, most of them lose the confidence on the socialism and the communism. That's why I talk about the conclusion. My conclusion is 10% is very firmly believe communism. 20 or 30% people, they are follow the communists, like Heiko said. They want to get the resources from the government. They want to get the people to get promotion. If you are a membership of the Communist Party, you can get the promotion quickly. You are qualified to the senior officer, senior director in the state-owned companies. In China, 60% of the resources was taken control by the government and the state-owned companies. It's not by the private companies. So that's, yes, if you want to get some more better positions in the whole system, you must be the membership of the communist parties. So that's why a lot of people follow that. I saw the 30% of them is follow the power. They pursue the power. It's not ideologies. Whether or not they believe the communists, they believe the powers.
I see China
Yes,
as a miracle.
China is only
1.4
one.
billion people.
Yes.
We've got
Let me
7
speak
million
to reply and then you come back.
Okay.
No, I don't like debate this.
Yes, so I
What's
finished
that
that.
number? 1.4 billion people. That's
1.4 billion people live in it. Yes.
Absolutely respect. You know what I mean? This country's got 70 million and it's a shithole. You know, it's governed by shithole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a mess. How to keep order for 1.4 billion people and have a proper, unbelievable civilization compared to here. This place is fucked. This place is a mess. China's not a mess. If China goes crazy, then we'll know something about the world, you know?
You talk about that.
Yeah, but if here's crazy, nobody cares a shit. 1.4 billion people, that's more than America and Europe twice. Yeah, that's a big lot of people, isn't it?
That's why, in China they have the collaborative culture.
China's amazing.
They're very focused on the individual, collaborating the growth
Change it.
work.
Don't bloody change it.
They do not focus on the individual contribution, individual creative. You know, next week I would like to talk about the political system difference between the China and United States. What's the difference between the China and United States, the political systems? You know, why the China is so many people, 1.4 billion people live there, but it's no chaos, no rebelling.
Is it really like that?
So my memory.
That's the impression the government gives. Or is
Yes,
it really like that?
a lot of people don't like the government's orders. They don't like the government's policy, but they cannot do the protest. You know, the only one protest I do my whole life is the first years I go to the university. In that years is 1999. The United States bombed the embassy of China in the Yugoslavia, and in the afternoon, the school call all the students come, and we don't know what happened. You know, they call the people go to the street. They organize students to the protest the United States to the bomb the China embassy in Europe. So this is only once I do the protest in China. They do very good. They do very good. That's only one protest. So.
Right, let me reply.
Okay.
I can only go up and reply. Let's get back up.
Stand here. He wants to come
I want to stand on the platform and reply to what you said.
Okay. No problem.
Thanks very much. So, I don't really agree with what Alan's saying. Firstly, as I said earlier on, I think the Chinese Communist Party is predominantly peopled by people who are careerists rather than believers. Now that doesn't mean they don't believe in general in the nature of the system of power, but they don't really believe in like Marx's ideas. They believe in some combination of doctrine proposed by the leadership of the party to suit the interests of those in power and to maintain the system in power. So they have a national identity and they promote China as an economic growth model rather than ideologically believing in communism. And my knowledge about this is, one, I spent quite a bit of time, I spent some time working in China. My PhD is on Chinese political economy, and I wrote for the Chinese government website, china.org, for 11 years as a journalist. So I've got some knowledge and experience. Most of the people working inside the Chinese media, they used to ask me to write about Marxism because they didn't know anything about Marxism. These are party members. They didn't know about Marxism. So they go, well, ask this guy, because he's a Marxist. And you can see on the internet, they used to ask me to write about Hu Jintao, about Xi Jinping, about the 5-year plan. I used to be the go-to person to write about these questions because their own staff did not feel confident to write about it without maybe making a mistake. And so I could put out stuff on them. So when you say Firstly, I say Communist Party membership doesn't mean they believe in Marxism or in the Marxist view of communism. On the other side, those people who declare or who are not party members, so migrant workers, for example, there are hundreds of millions of migrant workers in China who have moved to the cities in the last 30 years. Hundreds of millions. Their living standards have improved. Their conditions have improved. They eke out an existence initially, but eventually they get a job, they get housing. Many of them also have a house in the countryside, and they have a house or an apartment in the city. If they get regularized and they get an urban registration, then they are part of the urban working class, and they have welfare conditions not that dissimilar to those in Europe, if they live in the cities and have an urban registration. And in the last 10 years, hundreds of millions of people have moved from the countryside and been given regularized hukou status or registration status in the cities. So they've moved from being peasants or living in working in factories in very bad conditions in the countryside to the cities and becoming modern urban people living in relatively good conditions. Those people, although they disagree, they might say, oh, Grandpa Xi, you know, they might make fun of him, they might make fun of Hu Jintao, but overall, those people are supportive of the basic system. In China, Gongchangdan means public ownership party. That's what the word means. Communist Party means public ownership party. And when there are, and I disagree about the protests, China in general over the last 15 years has had far more unrest, protest demonstrations, strikes, protests by workers, protests by pensioners than most European and certainly than Britain has. Certainly than Britain has. And when these protests break out, there's a social scientist in China by the name of Yu Zhenrong, and he used to work at the Agriculture Department of the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. He's one of the leading experts on protests in China. He studied the miners in I think it's Anyuan or something like that, a place where Mao Zedong was heavily involved in the 1920s. And he studied the condition of the miners. He examined the protests all over China. And the key characteristic of protests in China is that, for example, I'll give you one example. He went to a village. There was a man standing there with a megaphone. And the megaphone was reading out an edict from the Communist Party. And he was standing outside the headquarters of the Communist Party in the town where they lived. And then this guy went up to him and said, aren't you afraid to stand in front of the Communist Party building and have this announcement attacking them? And he said, this is the policy of the Communist Party. I am reading out. And they are scared because I am telling them what their official policy is. And they are disobeying their official policy. And in most occasions, there's a very good TV program published, broadcast in China. It was enormously popular. And it's called In the Name of the People. It's a police program. You might know it. It's about anti-corruption in China. 55 series program. Watched by 1 billion people in China. And in this program, they have examples where a lower level factory manager who has become retired is called upon by the party officials who are engaged in corruption to mediate between the workers and the party. Because the party, for example, in one case, is involved in selling off a state-owned factory. And some people are stealing money. And this guy is brought in to mediate between the two. Initially he goes to mediate. The workers build barricades, set fire to the barricades. And then he goes to the side of the workers. And then the local government capitulates the demands of the workers. So I believe that the balance of class forces in China, created by the development of the economy, driven by public ownership, which leads to the creation of a giant working class, ever expanding, with ever expanding demands and ever-expanding improvements in their living standards because of the economic growth. They are themselves, what you could say, they have a socialist consciousness. If there was free, say the Communist Party called tomorrow for anyone to form a political party, like we've got a general election here, and anyone can stand in the election, rather than the Communist Party losing power, or better said, someone coming to power, if it was an election for president, rather than the president being someone like Joe Biden or Donald Trump or someone advocating capitalism, I believe that in China, a Maoist would win the vote. A Maoist would win a majority in China, advocating a more egalitarian society, less inequality, and improvement of the condition of the masses. That's how I believe the genuine mood of the population is in China. And that is why the Chinese Communist Party is in power. Because the majority of people in China believe in some kind of egalitarian socialism. They see what happened to the Soviet Union and they don't want to go there. And they believe that the economic growth, despite the corruption, despite the theft, despite the crookery, despite capitalist appropriation, they have still seen a massive rise in